It might not look like much, but it's the only copy in the world of an ancient text retelling the stories in the first book of the Bible, Genesis. And it's on display at the Shrine of the Book in Jerusalem's Israel Museum.
For the first time ever, we put on display column 10 of this manuscript. It's a document written in Aramaic from 2,000 years ago, and specifically this manuscript is telling the story about Noah.
The parchment is so fragile, it can only be viewed for 30 seconds at a time at the press of a button. It's from a section of the Genesis Apocryphon, one of the 7 scrolls found in 1947 in caves on the northwestern shores of the Dead Sea. The Genesis Apocryphon is among some of the earliest known copies of biblical texts. Many of the Dead Sea Scrolls outline the beliefs of a mysterious Jewish sect that dwelled in the area thousands of years ago.
Dead Sea Scrolls, they come from a very significant period of time, out of which the historical Judaism and Christianity emerged. So in this sense, the Dead Sea Scrolls is like traveling into the tunnel of time, reaching the real people who lived in the land of Israel 2,000 years ago.
Another exhibit at the museum looks at the incredible history behind the scrolls and the long journey they made, all the way from the caves in Qumran to the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. In 1947, Bedouin shepherds stumble upon the precious manuscripts in a series of caves in the Judean desert. Mohammed Adib and his cousin Juma Mohammed found the scrolls in jars and sold them to antiquities dealers. Archaeologists later returned to Qumran and continued excavations, finding thousands of written fragments.
The Dead Sea Scrolls is a major discovery. Some people argue that it is the most important archaeological discovery in the world in the 20th century.
Armaya Margit back from that sneak peek at that museum, a limited time only, and here with us. Unbelievable that this is even able to be pieced together. How does that process work?
Well, I mean, you can see from the report how much in tatters this is. It's brown, the scroll. I mean, you can barely see any text on it at all. And we can forgive it, of course, it's 2,000 years old, more than 2,000 years old.
Good reason to be a little tinted.
Right. You know, at that age, I think, you know, any fragment or person would be not in good shape. So listen, they have over 800 manuscripts so far that they found, and they all came in various states of, you know, disintegration, and they had to piece them together. What the curator of this show said, Adolfo Reutman, he said that basically it wasn't so difficult for certain manuscripts to piece together because they have a basis. They have, you know, the Old Testament in Hebrew, so they could rely on a basic text to look at. But some of them were guesswork. Although in recent years they did use some technology like DNA even. They used DNA to piece some of the pieces together to do multispectral imaging by NASA.
Because they were written on animal skin,
right.
We should say. That's why they're able to do that.
Right, so that's how they were able to do the DNA processing, but this is a very recent technology. So in the 50s when they were putting them together, they didn't have this. And so it was a lot of like very minute, it took them decades basically to piece some of these things together.
And it's funny because the more research they do in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the more questions that arise out of them. A lot of arguments still now about who even wrote them.
Right, you know, like the dominant theory is that there was this Jewish sect, this mysterious Jewish sect called the Essenes, who were living in Kilbeit Qumran in that area near the Dead Sea thousands of years ago, a breakaway sect basically. But this is a theory, it's a hypothesis, it's not proven. There are some scholars who dispute this theory, and they say that, you know, it could have been some other sect, it could have been some other sect like the priests in Jerusalem or the Sadducites.
And just stored in the Dead Sea.
Right, just storing it in the Dead Sea and putting it away during the revolt between the Jews and the Romans.
Unbelievable, unbelievable.